Last night, my wife and I went and saw the new Beetlejuice movie, and as I sat there watching it, I couldn't help but think, why was this made? Why is any sequel made? When should a sequel get made? Now, fair warning, this won't be a review necessarily of Beetlejuice, but I will be discussing some elements with full candor, so spoiler warning ahead. Now, I often have this thought surrounding sequels, remakes, prequels, requels, whatever. And before anybody accuses me of beating the "there aren't any original movies" drum, that's the furthest thing from the truth, and I'm quick to correct those that make such a statement. When films are coming out like Everything Everywhere All at Once, Ghostlight, Thelma, Love Lies Bleeding, and Monkey Man, saying that there's no original movies is a pretty reductionist stance. However, it can't be denied the types of films that put butts in seats. Every single one of the top 10 grossing movies of 2024 have been a sequel. All of them. So I'd like to pose the question again, this time within the specific framework of excluding making money and focusing strictly on making a good movie. Why and when should a sequel get made? I exclude making money because it's a perfectly valid reason for studios to continue, and I won't pretend otherwise. Gotta keep those lights on after all. But my question is more geared towards the impetus of an audience buying a ticket, and moreover, leaving the theater when end credits are rolling feeling excited and jubilant rather than deflated. I think the natural instinct to capitalize on the success of a breakout film by making the next one toot sweet is a pretty natural business model, and a tried and true method for Hollywood since lenses started burning focused light onto celluloid. But what about Beetlejuice, or Twisters, or Creed, Dune, the last two Indiana Jones movies, 1998's Psycho, 1999's House on Haunted Hill, Keaton's Batman in The Flash? When 20, 30, or 40 years have passed, where does the merit lie in dusting off an old franchise to proceed with a remake? Where does the merit lie in dusting off an aging actor to reprise an iconic role the world had previously thought left to the annals of history and safely tucked away, protected in our blanket fort of nostalgia? Why interject an entry into a franchise in the form of a requel pretending some films of the past exist while others don't, such as Halloween and the Brandon Routh Superman Returns? In all of my examples I just rattled off, I purposefully included success stories as well as flops, because I think in doing so it highlights the real answer to the question. A sequel, remake, or requel should be made when we look at the old with love and fondness, but have something new to say. One of the best sequels I can think of is Toy Story 2. Talk about following up a great movie and then still managing to exceed all expectations. Taking the characters we fell in love with, but then flipping them around to say something new, it was just the formula for success. Having Buzz needing to go after Woody and convince him he is a toy was a magnificent character reversal. Of course, Woody had no impressions he was anything other than a toy, but when faced with the prospect of becoming a collectible, preserved for posterity, Buzz had to teach the lessons he himself was taught in the first movie.
You are a toy!
That being played with by a kind-hearted child and bringing them joy is a noble calling. Even if there's an inevitable end as they grow up, the journey is worth the cost. On the other side of the coin, we have Gus Van Sant's Psycho remake, which, aside from bringing it up to date in a modern setting, offered absolutely nothing new in what it had to say. Oftentimes a shot-for-shot remake, it left a lot for people wondering, why didn't they just re-release Hitchcock's original in a nationwide theatrical event? The remake felt purposeless. I dare say the Creed film started strong in a way not many people expected, with Rocky Balboa, the film and the character, having taken their final bow not long prior. Where was the merit in dusting off the franchise and the character to focus on passing the baton? Well, it turns out it had something new to say. About Rocky, about the mentor/apprentice role that flipped the script from the first 2-3 movies, and about the world the films were set in, all with care and love of the Rocky franchise. 1999's House on Haunted Hill is what I consider to be a huge success in terms of a remake, showing so much love to the original, right down to Jeffrey Rush's pitch-perfect Vincent Price inspiration, but making it a gory, scary, balls-to-the-wall 90s horror thrill ride. It remains a favorite of mine. Sometimes the something new to say can take the form of bringing a film to life with never before available technology in filmmaking. Film is, after all, a visual storytelling medium, so new possibilities visually is occasionally enough. Sometimes the something new to say can be reusing many of the old elements and letting the changes in our society mold the film around it. The 2020 Invisible Man took the general concept, but put it within the framework of modern society to have a chilling and devastating conversation about abusive relationships and gaslighting. So then we get to Beetlejuice. a movie etched into my heart from my childhood as a movie that made me laugh and scared the pants off of me in equal measure. It's a big gamble to take such a delicate piece of nostalgia out of its glass case and move forward in building off of it. Gross profit of ticket sales and merchandise alone will make it worth it for the studios, but what would make it worth it for people like me? I had a fun time watching it, but something was lacking. Considering some of the subplots of the film, it's tough to avoid using a term like a soul, but here we are. Michael Keaton clearly loves the character. Tim Burton clearly loves the world he built. But something got lost in the translation that seemed to cause the filmmakers to miss the forest for the trees. It felt like a sequel to the loving memory of their film, but not to the actual film itself. The character of Beetlejuice was a manic pile of chaos with a quick wit and an irreverent tongue. All of that was present in this new movie, but he was also something that was missing this time around. He was cruel, menacing, dangerous. The banister snake sequence wasn't funny, it was frightening and mean, and it was supposed to be. "We've come for your daughter, Chuck," said with humor of the character, but dripping with threat at the same time. The world of the afterlife had its comedic moments. The roadkill flat messenger, the football players annoying Juno, the waiting room, all pretty funny in a macabre way. But the afterlife was also dreary, isolating, and haunting. Adam and Barbara walking down the hallways and stumbling across the room of lost souls was chilling and somber. In short, one of the reasons the original Beetlejuice worked so well as a film is exactly what I said earlier. It was a movie that made me laugh and scared the pants off of childhood me in equal measure. The last part seems to have been forgotten when pen got put to paper in this revival of the character and the world. The music and dance sequences were the brainchild of the Maitlands, not Beetlejuice. The sequel had some of the love of the original, clearly, but the kind of rose-colored glasses love someone might have for a relative that has long since passed, and you only want to remember the cheerful parts. The filmmakers themselves felt like an unreliable narrator in this way. Can someone really tell me that the Soul Train portion of this new movie would have felt perfectly at home and not out of place in the original film? So a version of the love was there, a version. But what about saying something new? There were some new characters, some new tricks, some new jokes, but it ultimately wound up being Beetlejuice, antagonizing everyone around him, living and dead, for the sake of marrying Lydia, only to have it end in a climactic wedding sequence interrupted by a sandworm taking out the baddies. As far as the new characters like Monica Bellucci's or Willem Dafoe's, I fail to see how they offered anything new aside from just keeping the pace going. They were MacGuffin characters, serving only to move the plot forward and keep a stopwatch on the stakes. Injected, used, and dismissed without really affecting a whole lot, and certainly not saying anything new. One thing that could have elevated the film greatly was touched on, but never realized. Delia telling Lydia, "Where is that goth teenager that stood up for herself and gave me hell? You need to find her again," was a perfect line for character growth and motivation. But it kind of just went nowhere. They escape the afterlife, find themselves in front of the chapel, and she just meekly heads to her wedding, pitifully proclaiming that maybe her obnoxious boyfriend loving her would be enough. All resolution for that relationship was later decided for her by happenstance. She had a powerful little moment before dismissing Beetlejuice, but really, the boyfriend subplot was the one where she showed the greatest weakness and thus had the best opportunity for growth. That would be something new to say, but it just fizzled. In terms of fitting the criteria I laid out earlier, of showing love for the original and having something new to say, Beetlejuice only halfway met one of the requirements and fell flat entirely on the other. The end result was a movie I don't think was a bad film. I don't regret watching it, and I even caught myself smiling here and there. But I never once laughed out loud. I never once felt terrified, and I never once felt like I was watching an iconic film full of macabre, sinister heart. In that alone, the answer to my question of why was this made? Probably shouldn't have been. But what do you think? Did you like the film? Did you hate it? What are your examples of great and terrible sequels? And how well did they fit the guideline I laid out? I'd love to hear from you, so please leave your comments below. Have a great day, everybody, and take care.